And so with homework 16, number 1, looking carefully at this, again, I'm going to encourage you to watch the notes for this section if you haven't. A trick to something being a difference of squares is that this number right here would be a perfect square, and it wouldn't have an x on it. But if you're looking for difference of squares, neither one of those are a perfect square. So a perfect difference of squares is not going to be something that comes into play here. Number 1 is actually quite a bit easier than what the rest of them will be like. We're basically supposed to simplify this, which if we were simplifying a fraction, let's take an example of something like 8 over 26. We would say, oh, look, those are both even. They can be divided by 2. Another way to write that, though, instead of saying divide by 2, is to write the numerator as a product and the denominator as a product. So that would be like the same as 4 times 2 over 13 times 2. And since there is a 2 in the numerator and a 2 in the denominator, they would cancel each other out. They would actually divide out, is a better way to say that, and we would be left with 4/13. And so basically all we're going to be doing today is simplifying fractions, although it is going to get a little bit more involved than the way that you've simplified fractions in the past. And so let's go ahead and look at this one. We have 9x squared minus 21x over 3x squared minus 15x. We can't just start canceling things out of the numerator and denominator here unless we have things that are a factor, which is something that's being multiplied by something else that is exactly the same as what's in the numerator and denominator. And I hope what I'm saying will make more sense in a moment, but like 9 is not the same as 3, 21 is not the same as 5, etc. But if we look at the numerator, we would say, hey, look, 9 and 21 both have a number in common that I could divide by. I could factor out a 3. And they both also have at least one x. And so if I was to factor that out, I would be left with x minus 7 in my numerator. And if I look at my denominator, I would go, oh, look, 3x squared and 15 also both have a 3, and they also both have an x. And if I factored that out, I would be left with x minus 5. And then we can say, just like we could on the fraction on the left, that where it had a 2 in the numerator and denominator being multiplied by something, we can say, look, the 3x and the 3x would divide out. They would cancel out. And all that would be left is x minus 7 over x minus 5. And so this is how we simplify fractions that have stuff like this going on in them. We're basically going to factor the numerator as far as we can, factor the denominator as far as we can, and then see what is in common that we can divide out. Another thing that's being asked in this homework assignment, which I do not believe they're going to ask you on ALEX, is to list the values for which the expression is undefined. And what we mean by undefined is I can't have a 0 in the denominator. And so for this piece, what we need to do is look specifically at our denominator, x minus 5, and say, okay, what would make the denominator 0? And so again, this is my simplified solution. That's the answer. But I cannot have x minus 5 equal to 0, because that would put a 0 in the denominator of our fraction, and we cannot divide by 0. It's what we call undefined. Just can't do it. So in this instance, x cannot be 5, because if we put a 5 in there, that would make the denominator 0, and that would not work. So again, kind of summarizing what we're up to here. We're going to factor our numerator. We're going to factor our denominator. We're going to find things in the numerator and denominator that are exactly the same, like these 3 x's. We're going to eliminate them because they would divide out evenly. And then what's left is the simplified fraction. I'll be back with another video for number 2.